The Long Island Railroad is North America's busiest commuter railroad, with its history dating all the way back to 1834. Over its long history, the LIRR has used a wide variety of rolling stock and locomotives. Some of the most distinctive features of these were their air horns. While to the average person, horns are meaningless warning devices, these instruments have had an extremely unique history on this island. From a sea of two chimes on their electric multiple units to an intriguing amount of horn swaps on their unique diesels, this is the unusual horn history of the Long Island Railroad. Before we start, I would like to give credit to retired railfan horn guy, Nate's Railfanning, and Nico's Railfanning for letting me use their footage in this video. When some of their footage is being played, their channel name will be on the bottom left corner. Also, subscribing and giving a like will help this channel out a ton, and I would deeply appreciate it. With all that out of the way, let's begin. The earliest history of the LIRR dates back to 1834 to connect what is now downtown Brooklyn to a now long-gone Greenport to Boston rail ferry service. This initial line, that was finished by 1844, was built through the center of the island, where fewer people lived to shorten travel time to the ferry. Eventually, the LIRR created branches to Oyster Bay and Port Jefferson to serve the more populated communities of the North Shore. By the 1870s, however, a few competitors began operations, which include today's Port Washington, Hempstead, and Montauk branches. These would later be all unified under LIRR ownership by the 1880s. In 1900, the famous Pennsylvania Railroad took a controlling stake, which eventually resulted in the main line's connection to Penn Station in Manhattan. Also while under PRR control, much of the railroad was electrified with 750-volt DC third rail systems. In 1965, the state of New York would purchase the LIRR from the PRR, turning over operations to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or MTA. It was under MTA ownership where our journey begins. In the late 1960s, the LIRR was seeking new electric multiple units to replace the aging MP54s dating all the way back to 1908. Starting in 1968, the Budd Company built a total of 770 EMUs arranged in married pairs. These new cars would be dubbed the M1 and would revolutionize the commuter experience. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for their horns. The M1 was equipped with the Leslie S44, a very high-pitched single-chime horn. Are the M3s, also built by Budd, from 1984 to 86. These were equipped with unrestricted Leslie RS2Ms, a much happier sounding multi-chime horn as opposed to the S44s. By the turn of the millennium, another new series of EMUs was purchased, this time from Bombardier. These were the M7, which today are the most common rolling stock on the island. These also have RS2Ms, however these are restricted and thus do not give the same feel as the M3s did. EMUs are the Kawasaki M9s, which entered service in 2019. These use the Nathan AirChime K5LLA horn, a higher pitch multi-time horn. This section will only focus on diesel equipment from the 1960s to the 1990s. This includes the SW1001s, MP15ACs, GB38-2s, Metro-North-owned FL9 ACs, and various power pack conversions. These all ran onto non-electrified branches, those being the entirety of the Oyster Bay branch, the Port Jefferson branch past Huntington, the Montauk branch past Babylon, and the main line past Ronkonkoma. These were also not allowed to operate in the tunnels of Penn Station due to their fumes, except for the FL9s, which could use third rail power. Information is limited to how many horns these locomotives had, but they are all trialed with various Leslie RS series and Nathan AirChime K, M, and P series horns. By the 1990s, most of these had the famous Nathan AirChime K5LLA, similar to the ones found on the F40PHs. Some of the MP15s and GP38s were sold to the New York and Atlantic Railway, or NYAR. Today, these units still run, with some receiving new horns under NYAR ownership. Most notably is MP15 AC number 159, which has been given a Nathan AirChime Newcast P5. Before we get into the diesels themselves, we must talk about what they haul, the Kawasaki C3 bi-level cars. These were built starting in 1989 and continued to serve dutifully on the non-electrified branches. The cab cars are equipped with, yet again, the Leslie RS2M, though a few featured the Nathan AirChime K3A. Last, we have reached what remains as some of EMD's most unique locomotives. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the EMD DE30AC and DM30AC. These nearly identical series of locomotives were built by EMD at the Super Steel plant in Schenectady, New York in 1999. The only difference between the two is the ability for the DMs to use third rail power to enter Penn Station. That is where the DM in the name comes in, as it stands for dual mode. The DE in DE30AC stands for diesel. A total of 23 of each were built, with the DEs being numbered 400 through 422, and the DMs being numbered from 500 to 522. As built, they were equipped with a very loud Nathan AirChime K5LLA, which was mounted on the roof of the engine. This would not last for long, as by just the next year in 2000, these were all removed and a completely new horn, never seen anywhere else in North America, was created using various Nathan AirChime K-bells. This new horn became known as the K5LL and was mounted just past the cab windows on the front of the engine. These are much less cheerful and are purely warning devices. Over the years, however, many of these horns have been removed from service for various reasons. The first K5LL to be removed was not even a year after it was first installed on DM30AC number 503. On October 23, 2000, while switching from diesel to electric power in Huntington, 503 suffered a major short circuit, which fried all of the locomotive's electronics. 503 was towed to Morris Park Yard in Queens and became a parts donor for the next 18 years before eventually getting scrapped. In this infamous 2011 photo, 503 is seen without its horn, so it can be presumed that it was removed sometime after the incident. During the mid to late 2000s, various locomotives had their K5LLs swapped out with a K5LA. Most of these were restricted, including 405, 407, 409, 410, 416, and 507, while the others were unrestricted, those being 401, 411, 418, and 518. Starting in the early 2010s, the primary horn of choice for new horns was the Nathan AirChime K5LLA, which was famously used on the SD70 ACE. 413, 504, 508, 509, and 521 all currently have K5LLAs. 409's K5LA was replaced with a K5LLA in 2019, and 511 formerly had a uniquely fouled K5LLA until it wrecked in 2019 and was permanently sidelined. That covers all the horns used on every D/DM30 AC, with 409 alone having the most horns, except not. There is one unit I have mentioned which also had 4 horns, but in a far more interesting way. 507's story doesn't end with its restricted K5LA, but goes far beyond that. Sometime in 2013, 507 suffered an electrical cabinet failure which damaged many of the electronics. Instead of sidelining the unit, the NYAR converted 507 into a DE30AC and renumbered it to 423. When it was rebuilt, 423 was given a K5LLA, which it retains to this day. As of just 2 weeks ago, the K5LLA on 423 has become fouled, now sounding nearly identical to the late 511. Throughout its long history, the NYAR has used a multitude of various horns on their equipment. From the humble Leslie S44 to the numerous Nathan AirChime K5LLs, and even a Newcast P5, the horns of the Long Island Road are certainly unique. Again, thanks to retired railfan horn guy, Nate's Railfanning, and Nico's Railfanning for letting me use their footage. Please like and subscribe, as it will help out the channel a ton. Catch you in the next video!